Welcome into Sports Memo's Betting Podcast for March 25th. Happy Monday out there. It is $9 Monday at sportsmemo.com, so check out the site. Great day to check it out. We got a lot of free picks up there, and every play today, tomorrow, 5%ers, 3%ers, any handicapper is discounted to just $9 for today, and the plays that go off later in the week will change to normal pricing late tonight. We got Andrew McGinnis on the podcast talking tonight's NHL board. We also got a look ahead towards tomorrow's as well, so a good podcast ahead. We do have the coupon code NHL195. That will take $100 off of the NHL full season for McGinnis. That's $100 off of $295 already discounted. With the playoffs coming up, you will receive every play that he releases. NHL 195 at checkout for $100 off. Without further ado, McGinnis, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Drew, I'm excited to be back. This feels like it's been a couple weeks now, and it's in that intense time of year right now. Playoffs are approaching. I was looking forward to this all day long. Can't wait to talk some hockey with you. We got a few plays for today and a play for tomorrow, a little look-ahead play as well. The teams are kind of racing for the playoffs right now, fighting for their spot. This is one of the best time of the year for it to be a hockey fan, really.
Yeah, no, it's a fun time. And sorry we haven't had John Moore. It's just with March Madness, it's a full podcast schedule. But NHL is in full swing, and down the playoffs, man, it's a fun sport to watch, to go to watch on TV. And we got a bunch of good games on tonight. Starting off at the top of the card, 7 o'clock Eastern puck drop. We got Florida heading north of the border to Toronto, game number 11-12. Over-under of 6.5. Looks like it opened 6. Something you've taught me is, once we get up to 6.5, it gets a little high here, but the way the market has pushed it, seeing 6.5s as the total across the board. Bookmaker just has a 6, minus 145 juice. I didn't know they went that high, McGinnis, in terms of totals prices. But either way, we got Toronto laying $2, as high as $2.15 at Bookmaker. They are playing at home, but that is a hefty price here. How are you looking to bet Florida versus Toronto?
Absolutely, Drew. There's a lot of hefty favorites here on this card, and that's really what you get when you kind of approach this time of year. A lot of the more dominant teams are starting to see some ridiculous pricing, and you want to avoid that. You want to try and stay away from those numbers as best as you can. But looking at this matchup here, Drew, this Toronto team has certainly been struggling against the main teams that they have to be doing well against. And, as much as they really do miss Jake Gardiner and Travis Dermott on defense, I mean, those are two key guys for them there, Drew. They still have to step things up and be able to kind of, maintain themselves without those two guys in the lineup, because recently they've really been proving that they're missing them a lot because, their last match against the New York Rangers, they fell 2-1. That's just something that can't happen, and then they played Nashville on the March 19th. They lose 3-0. But the worst one of all is March 16th. This Toronto team goes into Ottawa and loses 6-2, and they were minus 265 favorites. This Toronto team is supposed to mean business. They were supposed to be cup favorites at the start of the season. They're disappointing a lot of people right now. They have to step things up defensively. The biggest thing for this team right now, approaching this Florida team, is going to have to be, once again, to play a more defensive style of hockey, keep the score low. As we know, Florida has so much talent up front with Barkov, with Huberdeau, so many guys that can really get you. And I think when I look at this game here, my need for a lower scoring game means a tight game as well. People could easily say this could be a blowout for Toronto Maple Leafs talent-wise. With guys like Marleau, Marner, Matthews, Tavares, that lineup, you'd think it'd be so easy. But the way this Florida team is rolling right now, and the way that they're contending in most of their games, and the way Toronto is on a huge downfall right now with inconsistency, I'm going to look for Florida plus 1.5 here at $1.35, minus $1.35. I think it's a great kind of number here with the plus 1.5 goals. You're laying a small amount of juice here with the minus 135, but I really do like this Panthers team to keep things close. This Maple Leafs team has to learn how to win tight, hard-fought, aggressive games. This one will be one of those games here on a Monday night. And Florida plus 1.5 is my first play here on the podcast.
I like it, McGinnis. And do you normally play plus puck lines, or do you normally play minus puck lines, or normally the money line?
I would say more so just the money line, but this is the time of year where I look more so for these plus 1.5, just because I find that the numbers are so juiced up, Drew. Some teams are so falsely favored by a ridiculous number that all you really need is for a team to stay within the game, keep it close. And I think that's exactly what Florida can do here, if not win the game outright. A minus 135 isn't too bad, but when you start looking at some of these plus puck lines here, Drew, sometimes they get so high, like minus 160, 170, then it's just not worth it anymore. But a spot like this is great because this is a struggling Leafs team. They still got one defenseman questionable to come back tonight, and they've got, Dermott and Gardner still out. I'm worried about this Leafs team, and from a Montreal fan, I'm happy to see them struggling, Drew. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the playoff picture right here, I know you're a Montreal fan. We got to Toronto a couple slots ahead of them. And then Florida at 78 points, that's 10 points behind Montreal. One, how do you feel as a Montreal fan going into this time of year? Do you feel confident, comfortable? And two, do you think that the Panthers have a shot to reel either Montreal or Carolina in and get one of these playoff spots here in the East?
Well, it's interesting the way they changed the format, and I'll tell you, I am not a fan of it, but the way they designed it is that they just want the best teams playing the best. It's more so a divisional thing instead of just, 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, etc., just like how they do in most other leagues. And you look at it now, for the third consecutive season, it looks like Boston Bruins are going to play the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round of the playoffs, and as everyone knows, that shouldn't be going on, But looking at the Montreal, to answer your question, I'm feeling pretty comfortable. That win was huge 2 nights ago against Buffalo. Yesterday, very disappointing. They played Carolina. They needed a really close game. It went to overtime, and they ended up just falling short. But you still get that 1 point, of course, for overtime. And, of course, we got Columbus on the outside looking in. So, realistically, it's just that battle with Columbus. And very interesting, very noteworthy to watch here on Thursday. The Montreal Canadiens will be playing the Columbus Blue Jackets. And that game right there, Drew, could pretty much decide the playoff picture, as we know how important the head-to-head matchups are. So it's going to go right down to the wire for these teams. And, even a team like Philadelphia is trying to scrape their way by. So the next week and a half is going to be in some outstanding hockey.
Interesting. Okay, so just real quick, can you explain it for the, amateur hockey bettors out there, including myself, of how this playoff picture works? It's not 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7.
No, so it's all about pretty much just like top in your conference and top in your division. So looking at how important it is, look at the Metropolitan Division has 3 outstanding teams, the Capitals, the Islanders, and the Penguins. But yet, looking at that, typically it doesn't matter where they really fare in the Eastern Conference. It all just matters about where you fare in your division now. So they split the league up into so many divisions. Now there's the Atlantic, Metropolitan, Western, and Pacific. So pretty much you want to be the top team in that division, then you get to play the lowest wild card seed. So instead of it being just about division anymore, it's just the top teams in your division. Your top teams in your division play the lowest seed, pretty much trying to get in. So that's why the outside picture looking in right now, Montreal is the second wild card spot. So they would play Tampa Bay Lightning at the number 1. But pretty much the only teams that are really losing out, Drew, are the teams that are in the middle of the pack, like Boston and like Toronto, because they're stuck playing each other, whereas the best team, like the Tampa Bay Lightning, will play the worst team, like the Montreal Canadiens. So it's more so just a divisional battle to win your division than it is for you actually to win the conference.
Okay. Thanks for breaking that down, McGinnis. And you can follow McGinnis on Twitter at McGinnis Picks. And guys, remember the coupon code NHL 195. That is the coupon code NHL 195 at checkout for the rest of his NHL season for just $195. That's $100 off the retail price. We got 7:30 puck drop, 17-18 the game numbers here. Boston versus the aforementioned Tampa Bay Lightning, one of the best teams in the NHL. Minus 148, total of 6, McGinnis.
We got to take our hats off to this Tampa Bay Lightning team. An outstanding season that they have had. They've been, putting on a performance all year long. I haven't really seen, since I've been alive, I don't think, Drew, a team dominate the NHL like this team has. However, as we all know, it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. It matters what you do in the playoffs and how you move forwards there. There's also been a little bit of a curse here, Drew, as far as teams that win the President's Trophy, how well they fare in the playoffs. The President's Trophy, of course, being the team that wins the Eastern Conference, secures that number one spot. So definitely curious to see how they fare heading into the playoffs because, like I said, you can be a great team in the regular season, but things can be a little bit different moving forwards into the playoffs. Looking at this matchup here, you got the Boston Bruins and the Tampa Bay Lightning, pretty much the two hottest teams in the Eastern Conference right now. Before I even start out with this one, I do want to say, and I'm giving this out here on the podcast, there is some tremendous value, Drew, on taking the Bruins to win the Eastern Conference at plus 520. It's It's just ridiculous. It's crazy. I couldn't believe it, Drew, and these numbers are popping up for the Bruins to win the Eastern Conference. The Tampa Bay is just so heavily favored that no one's really thinking about these other teams like the Leafs, even just like the Bruins at that number there. It's ridiculous. But looking at this matchup, I've thought for so long that eventually the Tampa Bay Lightning would kind of take their foot off the gas pedal, realize, hey, we've secured this spot. We've secured number one in the Eastern Conference. We're the best team in the league. And yet they still haven't really taken their foot off the gas pedal whatsoever. Pretty much only 2 losses in their last 10 games and taking care of a lot of great teams as well, like Washington, like Toronto, like Winnipeg. But this is one of those spots here that I feel like this one might mean a hell of a lot more to the Boston Bruins than it will to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Of course, the Bruins coming off a 7-3 victory over the Florida Panthers in their last game. And then before that, 5-1 against New Jersey. Before that, 5-0 against the Islanders. What am I trying to say here? That this Boston team is catching fire at the right time. They're getting a lot of players back from injury, which is great for them. Sometimes I feel that when teams battle adversity, it really is great for their team altogether. When they get those guys back, they can rally from it. And they've totally had a great matchup history against Tampa Bay scoring-wise. They haven't really fared well, again, the last 1 or 2 games here against Tampa Bay, in the win column. But they've really been scoring. They've played well head-to-head. And I've loved the way that Marchand, Bergeron, Pasternak line has looked right now. Not to mention they're getting some great help from DeBrusk and Krejci recently. I think the Boston Bruins get things done here, Drew, at a great plus price. You can get it at 5 dimes at plus 135. And I think they'll come out here and outright beat this Tampa Bay Lightning team tonight.
Good stuff, McGinnis. Nice breakdown there. We got an 8 o'clock puck drop. 19:20 Nashville versus Minnesota. Looks like minus 131, minus 133, as low as minus 125 at BetOnline. So in the minus 130-ish range. That's the Predators laying on the road. We got a total of 5, juiced towards the over.
I'll keep this one plain and simple, very short. This is a game the Nashville Predators have to win. Not because of playoff implications, not because of team status or players not playing well. This is just a team that has underachieved over the past several weeks that has to wake up, that has to get their stuff together and realize that no matter if they're playing the Tampa Bay Lightning or if they're playing the Minnesota Wild, they have to go out there every single night and perform as a successful hockey club. It's kind of a disgrace, Drew, for the talent that they have on this team. What we've seen out of them for the past several weeks even is this line should never be what it is. The Nashville Predators should never be minus 125 against the Minnesota Wild. I don't care where the game is being held. This Predators team is far more talented, and they haven't really proved that to us over the past several games, which is why we are getting the odds that we are getting. The past 2 games, Winnipeg absolutely dominates Nashville 5-0. The game previous to that, Pittsburgh 2-1 victory over the Predators. But this is a chance here for Minnesota to really come out and take care of things against a struggling Minnesota team that realistically has no more scores. This is a team that's getting dominated on the scoreboard. They just lost 5-1 to Carolina. They lost 6-2 to Florida recently. They got shut out to San Jose. Lost 4-1 to Dallas. They're struggling to score. They have nobody else in their lineup anymore to go out there on a consistent basis and put the puck in the net for them and be a leader. I always stress when I'm with you and talking with you, Drew, about how important depth is in hockey, but realistically, you also do need those top scorers, those outstanding number one guys that can go out there and get the job done for you, like Nashville has with Forsberg, with Arvidsson, with a guy like Turris. They don't have that over there in Minnesota, and this is a perfect price that I'm comfortable taking here with Nashville at the minus 125, 135 number.
All right, McGinnis. And guys, coupon code NHL195 for $100 off of his NHL rest of the season, and we'll get you all the way through the Stanley Cup. Every single play he releases, no extra charges later. McGinnis, you have any look-ahead spots towards Tuesday? If so, throw them out there, man.
I do want to take a look here at the New York Islanders taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets. You and I mentioned that playoff race that we got going on right now, and of course, I'm not going to get too into it, but of course I am a Montreal Canadiens fan, so I'm really hoping that the Columbus Blue Jackets pretty much get crushed in any game that they play now, because I just don't want them to kind of squeak into that spot here. So pretty much my second favorite team right now, Drew, is any team Columbus is playing against. And that's the Islanders tomorrow. Looking at both these teams as they match up, we're seeing a 5.5 as the total. And like you mentioned, we've seen a lot of numbers raised as 6s, 6.5, seen some 7s this year. But I'm going to go ahead and look at the under 5.5 between these two teams. We've got some great goaltending right now with Grice and also Bobrovsky on both ends. And I look at this matchup, and I think the closer you get to the playoffs, the closer kind of these end-to-end action, high-scoring games start to disappear. I just see Columbus trying to pack things in. They've had so many guys underachieve so much. Like, you and I talked about it at the deadline, Drew, when we did our podcast with Alex B. Smith about the guys that they acquired and the new guys, how they're supposed to make an immediate impact. We haven't really seen that even really from Duchesne. Panarin's up there on the top line with Atkinson and Dubois, and he hasn't really done much for them. I guarantee that they've kind of figured out that they're going to have to win lower scoring, defensive, aggressive style games if they want to make that push to the playoffs and they want to be successful. They lost to Edmonton, which is very sad to see. Edmonton was a huge underdog, and they came out there, shut them down defensively, and then ran the score up on them. The next night, they're on their West Coast road trip. Columbus goes out, plays Vancouver, takes care of business. But is that a great team? No. Is that a team that you want to really be proud of yourself to beat? I would say not. This New York Islanders team will be a huge test for Columbus. And as these teams match up, I'm expecting a very low-scoring matchup between these two. As we know, this New York team, they went from being one of the highest-scoring teams in the league last year and the most over-trending team to now this year one of the most lower-scoring, defensive-minded teams. And that all is credited to their brand-new coach, Barry Trotz, who is the defending Stanley Cup champion coach. Of course, he won that with the Washington Capitals last season. So looking at this matchup here, I know it's a 5.5 total. I'm going under 5.5 in this look-ahead matchup for tomorrow.
All right, McGinnis, great stuff. As always, guys, check out sportsmemo.com. McGinnis's rest of NHL season for just $195 with the coupon code NHL195. McGinnis, if you had to pick one play off of the board we just talked about, what would be your play of the day for the podcast?
Play of the day for the podcast, we have to go with the Nashville Predators over the Minnesota Wild. Like I said, this is an underachieving team getting pretty decent odds here against a terrible team with no depth scoring and no one to really get the job done. I expect a dominant performance out of the Predators, and we'll watch this one cash for us here on the podcast play.
Okay, so like in Nashville, and what's the price?
Minus $1.35.
Okay, minus 135 on the Nashville Predators for the play of the day for the NHL podcast here. Make sure to check out McGinnis on Twitter at McGinnisPicks. He's got his Monday top-rated NHL play up at sportsmemo.com, and today is Monday. That means it's discounted to just $9. That's more than half off of the retail price because it's Monday, $9 Monday. That's his Monday top-rated NHL play. If you like NHL analysis, we're going to have McGinnis on probably once a week down the stretch here, and maybe even more so in the NHL playoffs. But he also does an NHL video at Wager Talk TV with the Prez as well. It's called Puck Time, so check that out as well over there. And we'll have you back on, McGinnis. Thanks for the time, guys. It's $9 Monday, and the coupon code is NHL195 at checkout. We'll be back tomorrow with Robbie Vino talking some college basketball and NBA betting. Stay tuned.